Where's the microphone at? The mic. Maybe. Inshallah. Right, sure. That's right. What are you doing, man? What are you looking at? Shit, you ain't do nothing. You just playing with it. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una. Allahumma zidna 'ilman innaka anta 'alimul hakim. Allahumma ij'al hadhihi muhadara hujjatan lana la hujjatan 'alayna ya rabbal alameen. Amma ba'd. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to talk about a very important topic. The topic is crime, murder, etc. Now, we're going to look at this topic from the perspective of Islamic judicial law, a glimpse into what it looks like in Islamic judicial law. And the reason is because this particular chapter is the next chapter after the book of divorce, etc. So the way the books of the fuqaha about Islam, the Islamic jurists, when they write their fiqh books, the first part is about ibadat. Fiqh al-ibadat, meaning how we worship Allah, right? Then the second part of it is the book of mu'amalat, how we buy, how we sell, etc. And then after you realize or learn how to make money, then the next part is getting married. So then you go through the book of nikah, marriage and divorce. And then after that, there's a book called Kitab al-Jinayat, the books of punishment. Not necessarily punishment, but crime, the criminal law. So a lot of people, when they think about Sharia or Islamic law, they think about this part only. And we're not even going to, and this part, honestly, is the smallest part of the books of fiqh, is the judicial penal code, if you will, and what it looks like in Islamic law. Now, the reason why we're covering this is that a lot of these topics, obviously, when we speak about murder and killing, etc., as it relates from a government standpoint, how those laws are to be implemented. Obviously, we don't live in a Muslim country, so then the purpose of looking at this is to understand Islamic law does exist as it relates to this, meaning how to deal with crimes and punishments in an Islamic country. However, while we're here as Muslims, it's a very good idea, especially people in our community, to understand the crime of murder and what it looks like if you were put in front of an Islamic judge living in a Muslim country. What does it look like? What do the crimes look like? What is manslaughter? What is murder? What is unintentional murder? Are there punishment for that? And if so, what is it? So today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to speak about some of those issues today. Not in a lot of detail, but in enough so that a person understands what it means. First thing we want to mention too is that everyone should be aware that murder in Islam is impermissible. It's haram to kill Muslims. It's haram to kill innocent people, Muslim or non-Muslim. It's not permissible for a Muslim to murder people unjustly, Muslim or non-Muslim. That's rule number one. That's something that everyone needs to be aware of. And so before we get into the text, we want to mention hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. It was reported فعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يقبض العلم ويظهر الجهل والفتنة ويكثر الحرج. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, knowledge will be removed, ignorance will be apparent, it will run rampant. And then he said there's going to be a lot of trials. And then he said there will be a lot of haraj. So they said to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, قِيلَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَمَا الْحَرَجِ. What is haraj? And he said, qatl. Haraj is murder. There's going to be a lot of murder. Now, this was during the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So he's speaking about what will happen in the future. And this hadith was reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. So some people may say, what are some of the reasons why people murder? Why are people getting murdered? What are the reasons? What are some of the reasons why people murder other people? What's the reason? Lack of intellect. Lost their intellect. They went crazy. Okay. What's another reason? Anger. What's another reason? Jealousy. Revenge. All right? Yes. Love of the dunya. So some of them mention some of the reasons for murder is that you want to aid your friends or you aid your group. Jealousy. Maybe we don't like these people. They're from this block and we're from that block. And we was beefing. So because of that, that may lead to people killing each other. Right. What are the consequences of murdering somebody? Life in jail. What else? Retaliation? It's like killing all of mankind? Okay. I'm asking these questions because we're going to come back and visit it later. Yes? Your soul won't be the same. Right. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the biggest sins that a Muslim can commit is what? A shirk. What is a shirk? What is that? What is a shirk? What is it? To associate partners with Allah. How do you associate partners with Allah? What does that look like? In our society, what does shirk look like? Huh? Cross worshiping. You know anybody worship a cross? Some people. You know, okay. What else?
Considering Allah to be a man.
Considering Allah to be a man. Okay. I don't think, are there Muslims that consider Allah to be a man? Okay. Is it possible for a Muslim to fall into shirk? How would a Muslim fall into shirk? Yes. Anything that you put before Allah. Anything that you prioritize more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's good. I like that. What else? Your desires. A person can worship their desires. So then, when we speak about a shirk in our time, it may not necessarily look the same when we look through books of the past, when we find people worshiping the sun and the moon and the stars. Is that realistic? I'm not saying there aren't people that do it, but in our society, you may not find that. You may find shirk look a lot different now because, and so the reason why I'm mentioning that is because when we think about a shirk, when you read books of Tawheed and you think about a shirk, you think worshiping a stone or a rock. In your mind, you think an idol, so you're looking at a sculpture. This is not real in our society. We don't see that. And so because of that, it's important for a Muslim to know that shirk is more than just that. And what that means is a person could think to themselves, as long as I'm not doing these things, then I cannot fall into shirk. Does that make sense? As long as I'm not worshiping the moon, the sun, the stars, then I cannot fall into shirk. But in reality, there are forms of shirk that we can't see. Meaning, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, have we not seen the one that took his desires as his Lord? This is a form of shirk. Right? There are many different types. So we, as Muslims, you have to be careful. The reason why I mention that, because a shirk is the greatest sin that a Muslim can fall into. Right? Like, قتل Muslim بغير حق. Murdering a Muslim unjustly is a major sin in Islam. It's not bigger than a shirk, but it's up there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمُ خَالِدًا فِيهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever kills a Muslim intentionally, فَجَزَاؤُهُ, his punishment is Jahannam, khalidan fiha. Jahannam is the hellfire. Khalidan fiha means forever. Now, the scholars of tafsir, they will say khalidan fiha means forever. But then if the person was a Muslim, will he be in a hellfire forever? So some of the scholars of Islam, they say that when it says khalidan fiha here as it relates to a Muslim, it may be a very, 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 very long time. Right? One day could be like 1,000 years. Right? So then, the rest of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, then that person has earned Allah. This is when you murder a Muslim unjustly. You have earned Allah's anger. وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَعَنَهُ, then Allah has also cursed that person. وَعَدَّ لَهُمْ عَذَابًا عَظِيمًا, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for them a horrible, painful punishment. This is for the person who has killed a Muslim intentionally. Like, عن أبي درداء رضي الله تعالى عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول كل ذنب عسى الله أن يغفره إلا من مات مشركا. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that every sin that a person commits, it is hoped that Allah will forgive them, إِلَّا مَنْ مَاتَ مُشْرِكًا, except for the one who died associating partners with Allah, or مُؤْمِنٌ قَتَلَ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا, or a believer killing another believer intentionally, or a believer murdering another believer intentionally. In another narration, an Abi Sa'id al-Khudri and Abi Hurayrata radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لو أن أهل السماء وأهل الأرض اشتركوا في دم مؤمن لأكبهم الله في النار. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, if all of the people of the heavens and all of the people of the earth, if they were to associate and share in murdering someone, in murdering a believer, Allah said that He would have drug all of their faces to the hellfire. This is to show the importance of valuing the blood of a Muslim. And this is anyone in general, but here we're talking about Muslims in particular. In this last hadith, عن ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لن يزال المؤمن في فسحة من دينه من لم يصب دما حراما. A person will always be in a place where they can gain success in their religion as long as they do not take the blood of a Muslim unjustly. So, brothers and sisters in Islam, this issue of murder in Islam is an issue of great importance. It's an issue that if we don't talk about it, if we don't learn about it, then there's a chance that our people could fall into it without understanding the consequences. And lastly, we'll mention what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hujurat. Because a lot of times, if Muslims are fighting with each other, then there's one group of Muslims against another group of Muslims. Is that not true? Right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا. Allah says, if there are two groups of Muslims and they are fighting with each other, فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا, then it is for the Muslim that is just to make it right between them. Make it right between those two groups. فَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى, and if one of them rebels and transgresses against the other one, then Allah says, فَقَاتِلُوا الَّتِي تَبْغِي حَتَّى تَفِيَ إِلَىٰ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. Then all of you fight against the one that is fighting to oppress the other one. What does that mean? That means stop them. If you know too, especially here in the city, we find young men going to war with each other. It is for the men to stand up and say, hey, young boys, chill. This is not what we need to be doing. Tell them something, help them in a way that's going to stop them from doing what they're doing. Right? This is your responsibility as a Muslim. This is your responsibility as men in the community to be just. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. It is your job to make the affairs between two groups right. You have to fix it. It's your job. And Allah says, fix it بِالْعَدْلِ وَأَقْسِطُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُقْسِطِينَ. And Allah says, fix it and be just when you're doing it. Allah loves those that are just. So today, the next thing we're going to cover now is the technical legislative view of murder in Islam. Once it happens. Islam is a religion that covers every single aspect of a person's life. Everything. And this is why ulama of al-Islam, they spend their life studying deen. They spend their life studying and learning what Allah wants from them. And then there are people that reach a level where they have to decide on the life of other people, judges. There are some people that Allah raised them to the ranks of being judges to rule in the affairs of other Muslims. What we're going to cover is what Islamic judges look at when these cases are presented in front of them. When these cases are presented in front of them, they have to look at the situation. And I want everyone to pay attention to how detailed these issues are when they give out verdicts. So the first thing is, does Islam allow for capital punishment? Yes or no? What is capital punishment? Death sentence. So let me ask you guys a question. If a person murders someone in Islam, if you're in an Islamic country being ruled by Muslim judges, if a person murders someone, what do you think the ruling is on that? What happens? Who has options? The killer or who has options? The judge? What's the options?
The family of the victim has options to forgive him or to seek death for the person who killed him.
So what's the origin? What's the rule of thumb? If a person kills someone in Islam, what is the general rule of thumb? Huh?
They can be killed or they have to give blood money.
The rule of thumb is that if someone kills you, then that person will be killed. Who kills them? Who's the person that actually does it? Who does it? Who carries out the punishment? Is it you? Is it me? Is it a group of friends? Is it a vigilante group? Who carries out these actions? The government. The government. Not you, not me, not her, not him. The government. How does the government carry it out? What do they need? They need proof. They need evidence. Right? So all of these things is what happens in Islam. So Right now, we're going to talk about murder in Islam, a person losing his life. In Islamic law, murder comprises of three types. Murder comprises of three types. The first one, you have qatl amd, which is intentionally murdering someone. And then the second type is manslaughter. What is manslaughter? Now, manslaughter in Islam is one thing. What is manslaughter? Yes.
It's like when a death occurs, but it wasn't the intention. Like say you got an altercation, a fight, or something.
So did you intend to do harm to the person?
No, you might have been defending yourself.
Okay, so in Islam, all right, intentional, if you kill someone intentionally, this is intentional. Your intent was to kill that person. That was your intent. The second one is manslaughter. This person dies, but your intent was not to kill that person, but it was to cause bodily harm. Does that make sense? And then we have the third type, which is called wrongful death or wrongfully killing someone, right? Each of those three types of murders have different rulings for them. And what we're going to talk about today, inshallah ta'ala, is what it looks like in Islam. Now, mind you, we're speaking from the perspective of an Islamic judicial view. How would they view something like this? So the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, and we're coming from the book Zad al-Mustaqni', the same book we've been studying everything else from, has all these issues in it as well, all right? The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَهِيَ عَمْدٌ. It says, Kitab al-Jinayat, the books of crimes and punishment, crime. The word here is called jinayah. A jinayah is a ta'adda ala badin aw mal aw ird. So a crime in Islam is when a person transgresses on three things: a person's body, their wealth, or their honor. All three of those things, you can find yourself in an Islamic court and potentially put in jail. A person's body, their wealth, and their honor. In Islamic law, a person's honor is serious. To say something about someone that's not true or verified is punishable. Okay? So then, al-jinayah is something transgressing against a person's physical body, their wealth, or their honor. The legislative meaning in the Sharia, it also means that ta'addi ala badin bima yujibul qisas o mal. However, the legislative meaning here in this particular chapter, it comprises of two areas. It says a ta'addi ala badin, to transgress or to oppress someone physically by physically harming a person, and a type of harm that will cause for you to be punished yourself, like someone may take your life, meaning the government. That's number one. Or taking of someone's wealth. So then, al-jinayah legislatively comprises of two right now. Physically harming a person's body to the point that it will cause you to be punished by the government, or taking someone's wealth, which will also will cause you to be punished by the government. Is that clear? Or no? Right. It says, وَمَنْ قَتَلَ مُسْلِمًا عَمْدًا عُدْوَانًا فُسِّقَ وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. So the first thing you need to understand, if a person kills a Muslim unjustly, then they are considered sinful. وَعُدْوَانًا, they consider it sinful, and their affair goes back to Allah. Allah will judge in their affair. And this is also something very important. When you hear stuff like that and say Allah will judge in their affair, that means in the next life. However, in this life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed the punishment for that person. Is that clear? Right. So it says, وَإِنْ شَاءَ عَذَّبَهُ. If Allah wants, Allah will punish him. وَإِنْ شَاءَ غَفَرَ اللَّهُ. And if Allah wants to, Allah will forgive that person. وَتَوْبَتَهُ مَقْبُولَةٌ. And if a person is a murderer, and if he killed someone unjustly, if he makes tawbah, he makes repentance, Allah can accept that person's repentance. Is that clear? فهي الجناية ثلاثة أضرب. So then, murder in Islam are three types. It says, وَهِيَ عَمْدٌ يَخْتَصُّ الْقَوَدُ بِهِ بِشَرْطِ الْقَصْدِ. So the first type of murder is when a person intentionally wanted to harm someone. Not just harm, but their intent was to take that person's life. So it says, يَخْتَصُّ الْقَوَدُ. Al-qawad, it means قَتْلُ قَاتِلْ بِمَنْ قَتْلَهُ. That the government will execute the person who did the murder. He will be executed by the government. This is the first rule. If a person kills someone intentionally, then the Islamic government will execute that person. There's no such thing as death row for 30 years or 40 years. They get you out of there quick. Why do you think that is? And in addition to that, when those things happen, it's public. So number one, why do you think they're public? And number two, why do you think it's done? What do you think the wisdom is behind that?
The public is the deter everyone else.
So the public is the deterrent. Is a deterrent for a person, hey, I don't want to do that. All right? طيب. The second type is shibhu amd, which is manslaughter, and the third one is intentional. Oh, I'm sorry, by accidental. The third type of murder is accidental. As it relates to intentional, there are 5 conditions that will determine whether or not it was intentional or not. Number 1, and yaqsat man ya'lamuhu adamiyan. So the first one is that you intended a human, not an animal. So the Islamic jurists, they're very specific in their sentences. And it says, and yaqsada man ya'lamuhu adamiyan. So you intended to take the life of a human. Ma'suman, a human that you had no right to take that person's life. You had no right. Is there a chance where you could have the right to take someone's life? What does that look like? Self-defense. Maybe you're in an army or war. Maybe if you're a police officer doing your job legally, right? Fighting with someone. But the average person walking around the street, you don't have the right to take someone's life. Right? So then, the first thing is the intention. The person is a human, obviously, and you don't have the right. Their blood is safe from you, meaning you cannot, under no circumstances, transgress and just harm someone because you don't like them. Right? فَيَقْتُلُهُ بِمَا يَغْلِبُ. And then you kill that person. But you don't just kill that person. They say you kill that person with something that you think will cause that person to die. Let that sink in. You take the life of someone with something that you believe is going to cause that person's death. So to give examples, in case someone's confused. So they say, mithlu, like what? Yajrahu bima mawra fi badani. If you stab someone, now listen to this. If you stab someone and you don't kill them, in Islam, this is attempted murder. You tried to. If you stab that person, let's say you stab them in the leg. We'll get to that later. Let's say you stab someone. If you stab them and your intent from stabbing them is to kill them, like if you cut someone's throat, chances are they're going to what? They're going to die. So in this case, that ruling would apply to that person. If you, let me give another example. They say, or yadribuhu bihajarin kabirin. Or if you hit somebody with a big rock, the rock is big enough that you know if you hit them with it, you're going to cause that person to lose their life. Or yulqi alayhi ha'idan. Or if a man is laying down and you stand from the top of a building and throw something on him. Or, they give another example. Or if you push that person from the top of a building or something, or if you throw him in a place where there are lions at, and you drop him in a hole with a bunch of lions, you know he's going to die, right? Or, and this is based on what we saw here, you can also apply using guns if you shoot someone. If you shoot someone with the intention of killing them and you kill them, then this is what? Murder. This is intentional murder, not just murder. Remember, it's 3 types. It's intentional murder. What is the punishment for intentional murder? Capital punishment in Islamic law in a court system. Like, if, and I'm giving you more examples, or if you throw someone in a fire and they burn, or you drown them, or you cover their nose and their mouth and put them underwater for a time period knowing that they could pass away. The fuqaha or the scholars, they speak about all these examples, or anything that's like that. Or if you lock somebody up long enough and don't feed them food or give them something to drink and they die from that, right? All of these are considered intentional. And the reason why it's considered intentional is because all the things that you've done are what can generally kill someone. There's not going to be any confusion about what you've done to that person and why you did it. Does that make sense? Right. Another example, they say, oh, yaqtuluhu bi sihrin. Let's say you kill somebody by using black magic. Or you kill somebody by poisoning them. All of those are considered the same. Or, they give another example, or shahidta alayhi bayyinatan bima yujibu qatlahu thumma raja'u wa qalu amadna qatlahu. Now this one here is interesting. Let's say, for example, you have a couple brothers or some people, and they bear witness that such and such murdered somebody. So then that person gets murdered by the government. They execute this person. And then they come back later and say, no, it wasn't really him, it was somebody else. Then they will turn around and execute those people who made that false claim. All of this is part of the Islamic judicial system as it relates to murder. This is how they did. If you notice, in Islamic countries, they don't have murder like we have here. Their murder rate is extremely low. Why? Because they implement these things here. They don't play when it comes to murdering people. The next one. It says, وَنَحْوَ ذَلِكَ وَالشِّبْهُ عَمْدٍ. The next one is manslaughter. Now, this is very specific. It says manslaughter and yaqsid jinayatan. So let's say, for example, in Islam, manslaughter is when you harm someone, but you intend to harm someone. You intend to harm someone. You maybe you're fighting somebody and you wanted to cause them harm, or beat them with a stick or something like that, right? So it says, and yaqsid jinayatan. You intended to commit a crime. While you intended to commit that crime, la taqtulu ghaliban. However, whatever you've done to that person, generally it does not kill people. It does not kill people. Walam yajrahu biha. And you didn't puncture the skin. Why did they use the term puncturing the skin? You didn't stab, you didn't pierce the skin. Why did they say that? They say because anytime you puncture someone's skin, let's say you stab somebody in their foot, or you stab them in the leg or the thigh, and they die from that, then that is considered intentional murder, not manslaughter in Islam. Is that clear? So in Islamic law, even if let's say even if you don't mean to kill somebody, say, I'm gonna just shoot him in his leg. I'm gonna shoot him in his foot. And they die from that foot shot. Remember, it could be manslaughter or intentional murder. They will consider that to be intentional. Why? Because you pierced the skin. Does that make sense? That's how strict it is in Islamic law when it comes to a person's life. Any questions about that? So the next part. كَمَنْ ضَرَبَهُ فِي غَيْرِ مَقْتَلٍ بِصَوْتٍ. So let's say, for example, if a person punches someone. If you punch someone, you're fighting them, you punch them, they fall and hit their head. Is that intentional murder or manslaughter in Islam? It's manslaughter. Why? Because the intent was not to murder the person. Well, what if you stab the person in the leg, but your intent wasn't to murder him? Because you pierced the skin. And anything that goes in the skin could lead to a person dying. Infection, etc., etc. Is that clear? Yes. No, scratching is different. Nafud, the way the scholars, it means to go inside and pierce the skin, not like the flesh. You could punch somebody and bust their eye open or something and they're bleeding, but they're talking about piercing the flesh, like stabbing. Yes. As it relates to qatlu khata, the next one is an accidental death. And yaf'ala malahu fi'luhu. So accidental death could be a couple things. Accidentally could means you could be driving down the street and somebody runs into the road, you didn't see him and you hit him. Right? There wasn't your intention. You may have, you had no intention to hurt this person. You had no intention to do anything, but you accidentally caused that person's death. All right. These are two things. A child and a person with an intellectual disability. If they were to murder someone, what category would they fall under? Would it be intentional? Would it be manslaughter? Or would it be wrongful death? Anyone? Wrongful. Why wrongful? Because the pen is lifted from them. So then what does that mean? The next question is, well, what if a child or a person with intellectual disability murdered one of your family members? So that means, so what is removed is that person is not going to be executed, but what does that mean for me and my situation? We have something in Islam called a diya. A diya is translated to mean blood money. Roughly, for every soul, the minimum, and this number may have changed, but the minimum may be $80,000 per person. You can always get more, but that's the bare minimum. So if you murder someone in a family, if it's an opportunity, like, for example, a manslaughter, for example, or even you intentionally kill somebody, right? The family, the awliya or the wali, the guardian of the family has an option. They can either, yes, government, execute this person, or B, we want to take the money, or C, they can pardon them all together. They can pardon them all together.
So who pays the blood money? Is it the
Mumtaz, good question. The sheikh said, who pays the blood money? So let's say, for example, A killed B. A killed B. B's family is upset. And mind you, guys, this is how wars start in our city. This is why we're talking about this. A killed B. B's family's upset. So B's family, no, we're going to kill A's family, then A's family. And that's what happens, right? Islamically, how are those situations dealt with? A killed B. B's family is upset because B got killed. Who has to pay that money? Is it A and his family, or is it just A by himself? Who is required Islamically if money were to be sought after? Who's required? The requirement here is the awliya, his wali. So a person might, wait. Men got walis? Yes. Wali here is the people that are inheritors from him, or the people that he inherit from. So if he's an all-Muslim family, that would be his father, his brothers, his uncles, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, his grandchildren. All the people in his family got to pitch in to pay that money. This is Islam. This is called the aqilah. The aqila is like his family. Anybody ever see the word called iqal? You ever see a person wear something and it's wrapped around their head? That black thing that circles around their head is called the iqal. The aqila here, it talks about the family. His whole circle, his whole family circle has to put that money up. His whole family circle will be required to put the money up. So then, yes, men and women. Whoever, I just mentioned the men, but anyone that inherits from him or that he inherits from. It says, the next issue, so are we clear on that? Yes.
You said, is it and or? So anyone that he inherits from, or anyone that inherits from him, or all of them together?
They're the same. So usually they're the same. Mother, father, father, son. You inherit from your mother, your parents inherit from you. It's the same. There's reciprocity there. Yes.
But if not from him directly, the one who
If he has it, for sure. But if not, he has a network.
one more question. What if they can't pay the blood money?
Then
Situation.
in a Muslim country right here. In a Muslim country, if they can't pay, they got to get the money out. Otherwise, the person going to be executed. They're giving them an opportunity. If you don't have it, then this is they say all right with the blood money. If you don't have it, then that person may be executed. But you got to pay them. They're given the option to pay the money. Or they can pardon it, or they can ask for more. Meaning more than the 80,000. Yes. Allahu Alam. I'm assuming the time limit would be whatever time the judge gives them. Right. Yes. Once they pay, they're good. So I've seen times in Saudi Arabia this happened. Family members, someone killed someone from a family member, and they were able to get up the blood money, and they paid them. Once they paid them, you'll see like there were videos of the families having parties and everything because the person, they let them live, right? And then I also seen videos where families were happy because they pardoned them all together. So you actually see these things. It happens. These things happen, right? But any questions about that? Yes.
I have a question. What happens if the family they're capable of paying the blood money, but they look at the family member as a headache or a nuisance?
Then they're not going to pay it. But understand what comes with that is that person may be executed.
Has an option whether to pay or not.
Yeah. There's not. Yeah. If the person, look, we want to pay the blood money. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's a good question. I'm not sure, because if the family of the maqtul, if the family of the deceased says we don't want to ask you, but we want that money, they may be forced to come up with that money. They may be forced to. Allah knows best. That's a good question. I'll research that one. Yes.
So the family of the murdered person, they can't say, all right, if he doesn't have the money, we want him to be in jail for a time. They can't choose imprisonment.
Well, in prison. So then, okay. So right now we're just talking about. So here's the thing. Right now we're talking about capital punishment or not. That's what the money is for. The money is for that. If they pardon them all together, then they still may put them in jail for some time and let them go, right? It depends. All that stuff depends on the judge. Right now, we're just speaking about the issue of murder and capital punishment, what it actually looks like. But those are some good questions, though. The next one, it says, وَتُقْتَلُ جَمَاعَةُ بِالْوَاحِدِ وَإِنْ سَقَطَ الْقَوَدُ أَدُّوا دِيَّةً وَاحِدَةً. All right, so the next one is, there's a narration of some of the scholars in the past. It says, وَإِنْ صَلَحَ. All right, so there's a ijma' of the Sahaba. Rawa, ijma' means a consensus from the Sahaba. And Sa'id ibn Musayyib and Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala, and قَتَلَ سَبْعَ مِنْ أَهْلُ صَنْعَى. So I'll give you the story. The story was, there was a mob of people, 7 men, and they came and they killed somebody. 7 men killed 1 person. So when the 7 men killed the person, they don't know who dealt the fatal blow. There were 7 people. You don't know which one dealt the fatal blow. So Umar ibn Khattab, he qatala sab'a min ahlu Sana'a. So he killed all 7 people. This is Umar ibn Khattab. he executed all 7 people فَقَتَلُوا رَجُلًا because they murdered one person. And he says, وَقَالَ لَوْ تَمْلَأَ عَلَيْهِ أَهْلُ الصَّنْعَةِ لَقَتَلْتُهُمْ بِهِ جَمِيعًا. And he said, if everybody from the city of Sana'a was a part of this murder, then he would have executed everyone in the city. He would have executed everyone in the city. This is what you call a ijma' sahaba. This is a consensus from the sahaba. The reason why we're going over this is so that people can understand this is another layer to Islam that many people are not familiar with. And there are many more layers. This is another layer of Islam that many people may not be familiar with. The next one, it gives some scenarios now. It says, وَمَنْ أَقْرَأَ مُكَلَّفًا عَلَى قَتْلِ مُكَافِئِهِ فَقَتْلُهُ أَوْدِيَ عَلَيْهِمَا. All right, so here's another scenario. If someone says to you, listen, you have to go kill this person over there. Did that sound about right? People talk like that, right? If you don't kill this person, I'm going to kill you. Does this sound reasonable? People can talk like that, right? If you don't do this, then I'm going to do that. So if the person, if he goes and murders someone and they find out about it, the person who did the murdering will also be executed, and the one who commanded the murder to be executed will also be executed. So both of them will be executed. The orderer and the one who fulfilled the order, both of them will be executed in Islam. Is that clear? Right. So then they say, فَالْقَتْلُ أَوْدِيَ عَلَيْهِمَا. So either A, they both will be executed, or B, they both will also pay the blood money. They both will pay the blood money. Any questions about that? Yes.
Do they have a concept in Islamic law like we have in American law, conspiracy?
It's funny you said they do. The funny thing is, a lot of American law came from Islamic law. Mind you, this was over 1,400 years ago. So understand, the law that we're mentioning now is over 1,500. America wasn't even around then. So where do you think they get their laws from? It didn't just come out the blue. That's why some of the stuff you hear, you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of similar. You might listen and be like, man, Islam's law is kind of similar to American law. No, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. The problem is no one knows this stuff because no one talks about it. Even algebra, yes. Right. And this is the last part we're going to cover about this. Anything after that, it gets into body parts. So, for example, if I break a brother's finger, for example, one finger is worth like 10 camels. Whatever the price of 10 camels is, that's the price of his finger, right? Really. Or if I cause his hand to be inoperable, I did something to maim his hand, that he loses function of his hand, I have to pay him 50 camels worth. Whatever value that would be, that's what I owe him. Okay? Every body part has a price tag associated with it. That's how Islam looks at it. So then, if you break a person's arm, let's say, for example, in Islam, he breaks his arm, your hand. Let's say a brother's hand is broken, he can't use it anymore. In Islam, the one who did it can either A, have his hand also broken by the government because you broke his arm. Now that eye for eye, tooth for a tooth. That's a part of Islamic law. If you break his arm, your arm's going to get broken. If you cut his arm off, your arm's going to get cut off. And like this, right? Or the person can opt for money, or he can pardon. Is that clear? All right, so the next part here, وَيَجِبُ بِالْعَمْدِ الْقَوْدُ أَوْ دِيَّةٌ فَيُخَيِّرُ الْوَلِيُّ بَيْنَهُمَا. So the next thing is, when a person intentionally murders someone in your family, there can either be a qawd or a diya, meaning the government can, they call it yaqtasu min, or the government can execute him, or you can be paid money to a family member. فَيُخَيْرُ الْوَلِي بَيْنَهُمَا. So the wali, the guardian of the family, will have an option to either go with the government execution or taking the money. And then he says, وَعَفَوْهُ مَجَانًا أَفْضَلُ. He says, however, in Islam, pardoning someone is better than executing them, and it's better than taking money from them. It's better to pardon them if you can. This part here, a lot of people don't understand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you pardon someone, then this is closer to having taqwa. If someone, just imagine someone murders your family member. So I've seen online a Muslim, a woman's son was murdered, right? And the guy was in court, and the mother said, you know what, I pardoned him. I pardoned him. She was a Muslim woman. She pardoned her son's murderer, right? The reality of it is, in order to do something like that, you have to be in a certain place with your connection with Allah. If someone takes a loved one from you, someone that you love, and they remove them from the earth and you won't see them again in this dunya, all right? It takes a lot for you to be able to pardon someone. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. That if we were to pardon, then this is closer to us having taqwa. You have to think about the level of iman a person must have for that. It's a high level of iman. And I was telling a brother earlier today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests all of his slaves. But guess what? We don't get to choose our test. You don't get to pick the test that you think is easier for you. We have to take the test that comes. And when our test comes, we have to be patient and do our best to pass. But when these tests come, you can't pick the one that you want. Okay? This is very important. So then we also find in another hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and Abi Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala an, he says, وَمَنْ عَفَى رَجُلٌ عَنْ مَظْلَمَةٍ إِلَّا زَادَهُ اللَّهُ بِهَا عِزًّا. This hadith you can find in Sahih Muslim. And the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, whoever pardons a man because they were oppressed, you were oppressed and you pardon someone, except that Allah will increase you in honor. That Allah will increase you in honor. So then, Islam, we're going to wrap this up. Islam shows you your rights. If this is done to you or your family, you have rights in Islam. The courts could either take that person's life, they can pay you money. You know, you can get their whole family to pay, whatever. You can increase the money if you want, etc. Or you can pardon. If you notice, the pardoning part came at the end. We talked about the pieces of the body, and you can pay this and pay that. But then at the end, if you pardon, it's better for you. When we think about that, if we look at in our society, in our city, we have a lot of young men, teenagers, murdering each other. Right? One of the things I mentioned when we first started, I started talking about a Tawheed and a shirk. A Tawheed and a shirk. When we speak about a Tawheed, a lot of times when we talk to our youth, we realize that they have no concept of what Tawheed is. None. Tawheed to many of the young people are just words. And then they'll say, a shirk is associating partners with Allah. I heard people say that. But if you ask someone, what does that really mean? There's no substance. It's a statement. So then when we speak about a Tawheed, it's very important that we apply Tawheed to our everyday lives. Even in situations like this. How can Tawheed apply to a situation like this? If someone murders a family member, what does that look like with your Tawheed? How does that affect your Tawheed? Or how can your Tawheed help you with that? How does that work? Anyone. Yes.
Part of it is qadr Allah.
Mumtaz. Part of it is accepting the Allah's decree. Accepting the Allah's qadr. What else?
Allah guides the hearts of people when they're facing a trial.
Allah guides the hearts. Okay. What else?
Allah's promise of mercy and relief.
Mumtaz. Allah's promise. So then, when a person is tested with a trial, you have to understand who your Lord is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created my family members. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Allah tells us that we all come from Allah, and to Allah we all will return. These are the times when your Tawheed means the most. And I'll give you another example. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, and they came out and they told Umar ibn Khattab, they said, the Prophet ﷺ just passed away. He was sitting in a room. He was laying there dead. When Umar ibn Khattab kept hearing this, he said, the next person say that the Prophet ﷺ is dead, I'm going to take his head off. And then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went in there and saw the Prophet ﷺ and came back out and told Umar that the Prophet ﷺ is dead. And then I believe he recited the ayah, Innaka mayyitun wa innahum mayyitun. He said, indeed, you passed away, and they too will pass away. That right there was a time like, wow, this is real. The Prophet ﷺ, and this, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, this is considered the biggest hardship of the Muslim Ummah, losing the Prophet ﷺ. During that time, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, many people left Islam. People left Islam. People stopped paying the zakat. People started coming up saying they were prophets after him. And so Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he took them to war. And so what I'm saying is that when trials happen in a person's life, it forces you to hold on to your Tawheed. Because at the end of the day, that's all we have. We don't have anything else. We have nothing else but our Tawheed. And so a lot of times, some people may say, oh, you're always talking about Tawheed all the time. Tawheed this and Tawheed that and da-da-da-da to the end of it. Well, guess what? Your Tawheed is what keeps you firm when trials come. Your Tawheed is what helps you deal with hardships when they come. Not if, when they come. And so, speaking about this issue about murder, it's a serious topic, and it's a topic that we don't speak about ever. We've never spoken about this. We have never spoken about this as it relates to Islamic law. What does it look like, murder in Islam? We've never spoken about this before. However, I believe that it's an important topic because in our community, it happens a lot. And in our community, these are things that we should discuss and understand them, right? But also understand that being able to pardon someone, Allah says this is closest to having taqwa. This is closest to having taqwa. If any of us, if we're not able to be like that, the question should be why? Where is my deficiency from being to that level? What am I missing in my religion that will not allow me to get to that point? And that's something that each of us, we have to search our own souls to try to find why we can't be there. And what does it take for us to be there? A lot of times we don't pardon each other for nothing. We don't pardon, yet alone taking a life. Yet alone taking a life. We don't pardon each other for anything. Yet, in Islam, it's possible to pardon someone for murdering a family member. Yet, we don't pardon somebody if they steal something from us. You steal a bag of chips from us, we go to war. We feel disrespected. Right? So, yes.
Question. So, in it, is there a prerequisite for like remorse? Does that come into play at any
For who? The murderer or for who? Remorse for who?
The murderer.
The killer. Okay. So
For a person to go and
pardon that person. Right.
But if the person is not seeking forgiveness or they're not sorry per se,
So one has nothing to do with the other. The pardoning from you is about your worship with Allah. Right? We're not responsible for that person. That person can say, yeah, I'm remorseful, and you believe, but they're really lying. That person might say, man, I'm not remorseful for it at all. But you say, you know what? Allah says, if I pardon this person that's closer to taqwa, I'm going to pardon him anyway, even if he's not seeking it. As for the murderer, the one who did the murder, that person, he has to make tawbah for himself because he has to answer to Allah for himself. One has nothing to do with the other. Your worship is for you, and that person seeking tawbah is for him. And pay attention, brothers and sisters. If something, you can't say, well, I'm not going to pardon that person if they don't seek forgiveness from me, or if they don't do. No, because now you're basing your worship off of their reaction. Our worship is for Allah, not based on how they make us feel in order to pardon them. That's a very thin line. Did that make sense? We are not waiting for you to seek my forgiveness in order for me to pardon you, because my worship is for Allah alone. And that person doing it, that's his worship for Allah, not for me. And this also goes back to say, when we do things, it's lillah. It's for Allah. It's not for anyone else. I'm not forgiving you because you seek my pardon, or because you're crying, or because you're making me feel bad about it, so now I'm going to pardon you. La. My pardon is for Allah. It's not for you. It's not for you. And this goes back to our Tawheed. This is why our Tawheed is so important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only created us for the purpose of worshiping Him. So for you, in this case, this is, all right, I don't like this person. I may want to harm this person. I may hate this person, but I'm going to pardon him lillah. I'm going to forgive this person for Allah, not for me. If it was for me, I'm not forgiving nothing. And this goes back to, why do we do what we do? Are we doing it for Allah, or are we doing it to make someone else happy? Pay attention, brothers and sisters. A shirk can creep into our lives by doing things to make other people happy. We may do things to please other people as opposed to pleasing Allah, and this is dangerous. Any other questions? Yes.
So, say for example, was an intentional murder, like the person intended on killing them and they succeeded, and then the point is the person did not remorseful, like they're like, pretty much they would do it again, but the people forgave them. Would the government override and say like, nah, we got to get them out of here, or just?
No, it's the family's choice. They pardon them, they pardon them. Yes. However, in order for that person to be forgiven by Allah, he still has to make tawbah. Yes.
Does the Islamic judicial system have due process, meaning like when a person murders somebody, do they go through the whole?
Yes. Mumtaz. So the brother said, is there a due process in Islamic law? Yes, there is. Right now, I'm just giving you the end result. You can't say, yes, he murdered someone, he did. No, there's a whole process. You have to go to the court, you need witnesses, you need evidence. Everything has to be substantiated and proven.
So do they have, so for instance, like in America, right? Somebody murdered somebody, right? Everybody know they did it, but they'll have a lawyer that'll try to defend them. Do they have them type of lawyers in Islam?
They do have lawyers. But like I said, so in Islam, we have something called turuq al-ithbat. Turuq al-ithbat means there are different pathways to affirm something was done, or to prove it was done, or to disprove it was done. So there is a proof. You need proof. Everything requires proof. I don't care if you have a lawyer or not. You still need proof. Right? Now, in terms of the details of every single case is different. I didn't look at a bunch of cases, but you can go look at all cases. They're available. Case study law. All that stuff is available. You can see it. Yes.
What would you say to the person? Sorry. What would you say to the person who has lost someone and they're not ready to pardon the person.
That's their choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the ta'fu aqrabu lit-taqwa, that pardoning is closest to having taqwa. But if you're not there, no one can make you be there. I said that is best to pardon. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever is able to pardon, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise them in honor. That person might not be ready to be raised in honor. We might not, listen, honestly, Sheikh, we might not be looking at it that deep because we're in our own feelings. Right? We're in our own feelings. We're not thinking about eventually I'm going to die and I'm going to have to meet Allah. This right here, me pardoning this person might actually raise my station in the next life because I've been shot out. And this happening to me and I'm in my pain, if I know if I pardon this person when I don't want to, when I hate him, I don't want to harm this person. But if I pardon him, this may be something that may catapult me in the next life. But you have to be cognizant of that. You have to think like that. The problem is we don't think like that. And the reason why we don't think like that is because we haven't conditioned ourselves to think like that, because we don't associate with people that think like that. And if we don't associate with people that think like that, then we're not going to think like that. And Allah knows best. Yes.
I think you mentioned it earlier about the sister that forgave the brother. You saw the video. I think if it's the same one, I'm thinking it's kind of like what he was saying. What I remember that stood out to me, if it's the same video, how she explained, like it was her son, how she was hurt, all of that different type of stuff. And she literally made it about her connection to Allah with Islam, and how she said, like, his death affected me like this, we was close, yada, yada, yada. Kind of like basically she was mad at the boy that killed her son, but all she kept saying was like how it affected her Islam. She didn't want to feel like that no more. Like it was just like what he was saying. She was just so that ain't me to be angry, hateful, whatever. I love my son. He was wrong, all of that. And all she was like, I asked the Lord to take it away from me, and she was basically saying this is how it got taken away from me, was to forgive him. Like she was talking about his family, how it affected them, and I was looking at the video and. Like Sheikh was saying, a lot of us, we don't come from that. And
Nah.
watching that same joint, I was like, man, like you said, we don't be around them type of people.
We don't be around those type of Muslims. So for us, to us, where we come from, that's far-fetched. Nobody's trying to hear that in our society. We're not trying to hear that.
She was all hugging, crying. She was the people his family that killed her son. And it was like he said, it was like they all got together. And even the guy that killed his son, it was like he ain't even know what to do. Like I was like, yo, like this is deep. Like that just was crazy.
Yes.
So I got a question. So say for example, it's a mother and a child, and the mother loses the hand of the child runs into traffic.
The mother loses the hand.
Yes, like they walk in and she loses the hand of the child.
Right.
The child runs into traffic and get hit by a car. The mother will be tried for the murder, or the person?
How? It was accidental death. Why would she be tried for murder? So you gotta go. Listen. Anytime we study something in fiqh, the very first thing we do is give definitions. In order for something to be manslaughter, let's say murder. In order for something to be murder, what is the key ingredient? Intent. Can you establish intent? No. And the intent to kill someone. Manslaughter. The intent was to harm. Do you think the mom intended to harm? No. So then it has to be on a third one, right? Like accident. It was an accident.
Yeah, the accident.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is the driver.
Oh, the driver. Okay, so we're speaking on behalf of the driver in the first part. Accidental, wrongful death. The driver's driving, he accidentally hit a kid.
Okay.
So no, he wouldn't be executed for that because it wasn't intentional.
But what I'm saying, so the driver still would have to play the celebrity.
Yes, the DA, yes.
Even though the mother's kind of like at fault because she.
But who say the mother's effort? It don't matter. A soul is lost.
Right. Okay.
Right? So you have the mubashir wa ghayr mubashir. You have the one who caused it, was the vehicle driver. He's directly responsible. Now, whether the mother's responsible for that, the court will have to look at that and see. But technically, the driver of the car will be responsible for the death because he was driving the car that killed the kid.
Okay.
That's it. That's black and white.
Right. That's what I was just thinking about.
Yeah. However, the details of it, Allahu Alam. If we have to look at a case like that. I haven't seen cases in a long time, so I don't, it's hard for me to look at that, yes. Any other questions? Yes, Father.
The issue where you said, like I tell somebody, yo, if you don't kill him, I'm gonna kill you. In American law, they would say he was under duress. Does Islamic law have the same thing?
Islamic law says both of them are responsible because they'll say you killed that person to maintain your own life. So you value your life over that person. That's literally how it's explained in the books of the fuqaha. You chose to remain living. In order for you to remain living, you had to execute someone else. So you chose to execute that person as opposed to your own self. Does that make sense? Yes.
So in that same situation, if the guy says you kill him or I will kill you, can the guy now turn and say, well, I'm gonna take care of you then instead of going to kill this other guy?
What do you mean, you mean legally can he do that or in the streets?
No, I mean like.
We're talking about Islamic law. What you're talking about is street justice.
Right.
You can do whatever you want in street justice. If you get caught, you get caught. I don't know what kind of question that is.
No problem.
No. I don't understand the question.
So basically, the guy, whoever says that he will go to the judges or the government, say, hey, look, he told me to do this, and just pretty much get him in trouble.
Listen, if a man says, if you don't kill this person, I'm going to kill you. So he goes and kills a person, he gets locked up, and he says, this person made me do it. They're both going to be executed in Islamic court. In Islamic law, why? Because one is the murderer and the other one is the commander of the murderer. So they both will take the same ruling. Yes?
How about on the flip side, if somebody says, if you don't kill him, I'm going to kill you, and then you kill him.
Oh, that's what you said. Oh, that's not what I understood.
Yeah, but
It's still murder. It's the same thing. Now, how they will, now listen, if that person, they can look at it in a different way. They can say that person, he was defending himself, he was fearful for his own, but you have to prove all of that. The origin is that you murdered a man unjustly. That's the origin. You got to disprove that, but that's what happened. So right now you're talking about detailed case studies. I don't know. Yes.
Does murder for hire fall into the same thing?
Same thing, Sheikh. Same thing. Yes.
So in that instance, right, once one has commands to murder and the other one doesn't, instead of doing it, could you fight this person and then be protected?
That's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. In that case, Allahu Alam, but that could be maybe self-defense. If it's self-defense, that's Allahu Alam. That's just something you got to look at. Yes.
Can you say the 5 conditions of the intentional murder?
5 conditions. I'm sorry?
Did you say all 5?
Yeah, I said 5. I thought I said 5. If I didn't, I'll say them again. So the 5 conditions of intentional murder is intention. They have to be human. They have to be ma'asum, meaning is free people, a person that is not permissible for you to harm, and that you kill the person with something that kills people usually. All right, those are all the 5. Yeah, the last 2 can be combined, but it's you kill someone, you take that person's life, 4, and 5 with something that usually would cause someone to lose their life. Any other questions? Yes.
So is there age limit, like if a juvenile kills someone?
So in Islam, when a person reaches the age of puberty, generally you're considered an adult. When a person reaches the age of puberty, generally you are considered an adult. Now, is there an age limit that they apply these to? Allahu Alam. I'm not sure. What I do know is once you reach the age of puberty, you are considered an adult. Any other questions? Khalas, we'll stop with that, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu